And third, Dennis Ireland, as they go off on their warm-up lap. In the second race, it was Goodfellow from Freak from Craig Trinder. It seems that one or two riders are opting not to have the warm-up lap.
There's no necessity. Sometimes, you know, this circuit, he's already done a couple of laps warm up, and he's probably using older tyres anyway, so there's no great problem at all. You know, the engine temperatures are pretty critical on these Grand Prix bikes, and if you can keep the temperatures down, then you get a little bit more horsepower advantage at the start of the race prior to engine temperatures building up.
It seems that the official on the start line was quite keen for him to circulate, and he was quite keen to stay exactly where he was. Seems to have been resolved with him staying there. Roger Freeth. And looking at the riders and the talent and the machinery that is in this third leg, there's only really Steve Trinder, whom you saw crash and who's been taken away to hospital to get an ankle and a wrist checked out. He's the only one missing. Of course, Robert Holden hasn't been here today. He will be at Wanganui and he will be at Manfield, we hope. So Craig Trinder leading the points at the moment. Dennis Ireland will give him some competition, as will Roger Freeth. And Roger Freeth is probably the fellow that Craig Trinder needs to beat in this final leg to go away with the lead today. And Brian Lawrence, it's been perhaps not the people that one would have picked beforehand.
No, that's for sure, Tony. I think that one of the men who's certainly going to be hard-pressed to be beaten here this afternoon in this third and final leg, which also incorporates the Brian Scobie Memorial points, would have to be Gary Goodfellow. He's had a win, he had a DNF in the first heat, and he's very keen to get back up on the points leaderboard. Trinder's got 25, Roger Freeth has 20, and of course Gary Goodfellow in there with 15 points. This is Gary Goodfellow on your screen alongside Roger Freeth. Very, very good starter. He'll be keen to get into that first corner first like he did last time.
And he's got the inside running. See how quickly he can get away from the starters. They're off in the third leg of Formula One. Gary Goodfellow getting away very quickly indeed from the inside. Taking the lead straight away. Roger Freeth beside him. I think Craig Trinder slipping in between the two of them. There's Goodfellow, there's Craig Trinder, Roger Freeth behind him.
Dennis Ireland certainly not getting a very good start in that one, and he's way back in midfield at the moment. He never featured in the top results of the second heat. Goodfellow getting a little out of shape under brakes as they switch on to the lakefront. Also right in there as well is just checking on him through there. Robbie Dean got a brilliant start in that one, and he's running in the first 5 as well. But this is the first place man, Gary Goodfellow from Canada. Craig Trinder, Roger Freeth, back into Dennis Ireland, who's up into 4th already. And Robbie Dean would be in 5th position. This is on the production GSX 750.
Like Gary Goodfellow's riding is a modified GSX 750R, the oil-cooled bike. It's got a complete race kit in it, minus the close ratio gearbox, which is probably an advantage around here because you just don't want to have too close gears because you've got to be able to get out of the corners real quick.
So Goodfellow holding off Craig Trinder. Over those bumps and managing to stay upright. Roger Freeth in 3rd still. Goodfellow and Trinder having a right old battle.
There's no problem there with Goodfellow. He's an ex-motocrosser, so he's probably used to that sort of treatment.
A very impressive ride from Craig Trinder, but there's Roger Freeth looking for a run down the inside, but it's certainly not there. But Craig Trinder certainly impressing here at Hamilton. This is the first time he's ever raced on a road circuit. He was 4th in this year's Australian 500cc national title.
For a fellow that's never raced on the streets before, he looks remarkably calm. Coming through this time, Goodfellow, Craig Trinder, Roger Freeth. Dennis Ireland just dropping off that bunch a little, or is he? Putting it back again. Robbie Dean behind him. And Gary Goodfellow not being allowed to get away as he did in the second leg. Managed to pull out a lead quite early on. Roger Freeth and Craig Trinder keeping him honest.
We've lost Dennis Ireland. I don't know where he is in that bunch. He was running 4th there, and he's no longer there.
There's the first three. Goodfellow, Trinder, and Robbie Dean's up there. Yes, Dennis Island's disappeared. Eddie Kattenberg through. Dennis Island must have overshot a corner or overdone it somewhere, but he's lost about 4 places from being right in touch with this front group of 3.
I think he's missed a corner, went to Cambridge. He's just joined back on there, so he's running about 8th place again now.
Goodfellow, Trinder, Dean. Robbie Dean doing amazingly well to stay with all the rest of them on a box standard production bike. Craig Trinder, if he can win this one, will be the points leader. Gary Goodfellow, having missed DNF in the first leg where he broke a sprocket, is well behind on the points, so he needs the win, whereas Craig Trinder, if he sits in the place that he's in, will go away at the end of the day leading the points table.
Gary Goodfellow up the hill into the right hander this time. Craig Trinder starting to close on a little over the top, and they're breaking away from Roger Freeth on the number 2 Macintosh Suzuki. Trinder running a little wide there, looking for a much smoother line coming up over the top there, but Goodfellow staying in on the very tight line. The bike bucking from one side to another. Trinder choosing a very tight line coming down into the right hander, which brings them back down onto the lakefront once again. And there's Trinder looking for the run there and takes Gary Goodfellow on the inside. He's been looking at that for the last 2 or 3 laps, but Gary Goodfellow, a little bit better acceleration, snatches it back, gives Trinder a bit of a nudge there out towards the bail. But Trinder, however, head down, tail up and back on the job again, but he's lost a little bit of contact with Goodfellow, and this would have to be one of the best races so far today in the Wins Formula 1 series. It's also allowed Roger Freeth to close a little on it, the National Formula 1 champion. Trinder wheeling out of the turn there. Through the loop road, Goodfellow gets the front wheel up as well, and here's the replay.
I think there was a bit of nudging going on here, and if you see Trinder, he came out, he went wide, allowed Gary to come up the inside. Now he's got there, and he just doesn't want to let that production type bike get in. Push, 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 try and get him over there. But Gary Goodfellow got through.
There's Craig Trinder definitely getting into a bit of a tank slapper coming out of the right-hander and back up to the top again, but he got it back under control. He's very quickly onto the throttle.
Well, Craig Trinder doesn't lack for courage. Intriguing to watch these front 3. Gary Goodfellow being allowed to get away just a little now, and Trinder will have to do the work again to pull up that gap. Roger Freeth staying with him, and these 3 running away.
You can see the determination and aggressiveness in the riding style. And that's what you need around these sort of circuits to do any good.
Getting a little closer that time down onto the lakefront. Roger Freeth still can't make any headway, although he hasn't lost touch with them. Robbie Dean doing amazingly well to stay as close as he is, but being left just a little. Well, Roger Freeth has complained quite a lot about how unsuited his bike is to this circuit, which is to be expected. I would imagine he'll go better at Wanganui and certainly better at Manfield. But Gary Goodfellow and Craig Trinder both have got to grips with this circuit very, very quickly indeed. Goodfellow and Trinder still battling it out. Freeth managing to stay with them.
There's also another big problem here that's arising, and that's as the riders are coming past the lakeside there, the sun is getting fairly low in the sky, and in and out of the trees with the black shadows and in the brilliant sunshine, it makes it very difficult to pick the lines.
Well, you need a shaded sun visor.
Well, they've completed 5 laps. There's 5 remaining, and it's still Gary Goodfellow, the Canadian 750 production champion, that leads the 3rd heat of the Wins Formula 1 motorcycle series here at Hamilton. The final event on our program today, and there's Trinder making another run up there. He's looking to try and outfox Goodfellow, but he's certainly not getting away with it this time. In the meantime, Roger Freeth sitting right there, menacingly close, just waiting for the slightest gap to get through. Robbie Dean, there he is in 4th position on the Suzuki 750. But Trinder tucked in. Goodfellow is a little quicker coming down onto the lakefront here. Gathers Goodfellow in a little bit, but there's no doubt about the expatriate, Vancouver-based former motocross star. He's really taken to road racing like a duck to water. Freeth still up there in 3rd. Trinder comes through the sweeper, two completely different lines through there. Gary Goodfellow choosing a much tighter line, and Trinder following a much more sweeping line through that corner, which was the misfortune of his elder brother Steve. Out of the hairpin, there's the Suzuki of Trinder's up on the back wheel again as he's snatching away at that gearbox, desperately trying to peg back that small gap that Gary Goodfellow is holding over him at the moment.
4 laps remain in this 10-lap race, the last one of the day, the third heat of Formula One. And Craig Trinder looking to walk away at the end of the day with the lead in his pocket. It'd be a nice way to approach Wanganui, which he's not seen before either. Gary Goodfellow hasn't seen the circuit. Roger Freeth and Robert Holden, we hope will be back, and one or two other riders will be more familiar with it than they will, and probably will get onto lap times quicker. But the way these two, as Brian Lawrence has said, the way they've both adapted to this street circuit, which is a difficult one to ride, I don't imagine it will take them too long at Wanganui. Craig Trinder still pushing Gary Goodfellow around down the bottom of the lake. Roger Freeth hasn't lost touch, although he has dropped back just a little. He really doesn't look like being close enough to pass them.
This is a tremendous battle. We've got a 500cc Grand Prix bike, we've got a 750cc modified production bike, and we've got an 1100cc horsepower bike that Roger Freeth is riding. He's doing a tremendous job staying with it. He has had problems with the back wheel keeping in contact with the road.
3 laps to go as they come over the finish line once again. It's still Goodfellow, and there's Trinder putting a run in around the outside, taking a much wider line. He's right to the outside. He's alongside Gary Goodfellow now, and Trinder has gone into the lead with just a few laps remaining. Craig Trinder from Australia on the RGB 500 Suzuki has taken the lead from Goodfellow. Oh, just missing a bump there. His foot coming off the foot peg there. Could have given his ankle a bit of a nasty tweak there.
It's exactly the same place as we saw Paul Pavlovich take over Glenn Williams in a Formula 2 race just a little while ago. Looked incredibly spectacular as it did that time. Craig Trinder really determined, really pushing hard to get past Gary Goodfellow. Well ridden.
Very keen to build up this points advantage, get as many points between him and Roger Freeth as he can, and of course by taking the lead from Gary Goodfellow, it puts Roger back an even further 3 points.
It seems that Craig Trinder, having got past, is now able to pull away just a little from Gary Goodfellow.
I think it was a lucky chance of putting a back marker in between him when he got past the slower rider. An advantage.
As we approach the top of the hill, the best Formula One race of the day, certainly. There are 2 laps to go now. Craig Trinder pulling away now from Gary Goodfellow. Roger Freeth in 3rd place. Still hanging in there in that 3rd place. Gary Goodfellow doesn't look as though he can get close enough to have another challenge at Craig Trinder. Craig Trinder starting to pull a wee bit of a margin. Sat there and diced with Gary Goodfellow for 3-4 laps. Very, very tight and tense stuff. Finally managed to get past. A big burst of determination. Goodfellow, Freeth, and waiting for 4th place. It should still be Robbie Dean. Yes, it is. Robbie Dean. That's really an accomplished ride from Robbie Dean to be up there. Eddie Kattenberg in 5th place. Should get the white flag this time.
There's the white flag signaling 1 to go, and Craig Trinder getting a little out of shape there as he comes over the brow of a hill there. And there's Roger Freeth, obviously quite happy to accept 3rd place and still be in the points and the prize money as we head to the 2nd round to Wanganui on Boxing Day. But Craig Trinder, certainly the man of the day. I would think between him and Gary Goodfellow it would have to be a tie, because they've both ridden their little hearts out right throughout the day. And it certainly is a brilliant return for Goodfellow here to New Zealand as a road racer, and a brilliant debut here to Hamilton for Craig Trinder. Certainly a tremendous effort After having been used to racing on permanent circuits in Australia, he gets this put underneath him when he comes to Hamilton, and still with a big broad grin on his face. He started this leg with a 5-point advantage over Roger Free.
This is a tremendous effort for somebody like Gary Goodfellow, motocross turned road racer. Bikes are all over the place here. It's a really bumpy circuit.
This could be a bit of a problem for Craig Trinder because he's got Goodfellow snapping away at his heels, and he's already in amongst these tail enders, and he'll certainly want to dispose of these fellows fairly quickly because there's Gary Goodfellow lurking in the background, but it's going to be Trinder's race. He makes his way up through the right-hander, and the checkered flag will be coming out this time, and it goes to Craig Trinder, taking 2 out of 3. Gary Goodfellow finishing there in second position. Third is number 2, Roger Freeth, the National Formula 1 champion. And looking for fourth position, number 38, Robbie Dean from Taronga.
That to me was the ride of the race, Robbie Dean on that production bike, managing to hold as closely to the leaders as he did. The next way for Craig Trinder.